The Order, also known as the Organization, was a religious cult who centered their activities on a quiet resort town for decades, using murder, abuse, and torture as means to accomplish their goals. Their primary objective? To rebirth God through a mortal womb in order to usher in the apocalypse. There was a cult member named Dahlia Gillespie, who came close to accomplishing this by using her own daughter, Alessa, as a vessel. But her plans were stopped by writer Harry Mason, whose search for his daughter Cheryl ultimately resulted in loss. But from that loss, Harry was given a newborn and escaped the town. While this could have very well been the conclusion to the story, Team Silent decided to expand on this ending and continue the story for a new game. A mere couple of weeks after Silent Hill 2 was completed, Team Silent was already working on not one, but two new games that would tie into the expanding Silent Hill franchise. And while the development team was reduced to 40 employees, key members of the Konami staff were kept on the projects. One example of this would be Akira Yamaoka, who this time would not only provide music and sounds, but would also be the producer. The side project titled Room 302 would be shelved, and focus was shifted on what would become the third Silent Hill game. The story would once more be penned by scenario writer Hiroyuki Iwaku, who also contributed to the event programming, while the monster designing talents of Masahiro Ito would be carried on to his role as art director and his new role of drama camera designer. The dark settings and murky backgrounds would be more closely based on real locations this time, due to this being the first game in the series to show us places outside of Silent Hill. And these would be handled by Yasunori Kanetake, who had a similar role in the previous game. Another first would be songs with vocals incorporated into the soundtrack. And after a chance meeting in Los Angeles, Akira Yamaoka discovered Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who would contribute to many future Silent Hill games. Shingu Iori was tasked with designing the four main characters of the story, including the first female protagonist of the series, a 17-year-old named Heather. This character in turn would be named after the motion capture artist and voice actress Heather Morris, who brought her to life. Silent Hill 3 for the Sony PlayStation 2 was released on May 23, 2003 in Europe, July 3rd in Japan, and August 6th in North America. The game would receive a PC port in October of that same year. Heather is a teenager living with her father somewhere in the American Northeast. But her normal life would be changed forever once nightmarish visions started creeping into her mind.
Where am I?
Unknown forces were beckoning, and she would have to heed the call whether she wanted to or not.
What a nightmare.
Heather wakes up in a fast food restaurant and brushes off the horrors of her dream, all the while holding close a pendant given to her by her father, Harry.
Dad, it's me. Yeah. Sorry I didn't call sooner. Yeah, I guess I was. Anyway, I'm coming home now. Oh.
While she's continuing to go about her day, she finds out she's being followed by a suspicious man.
Heather, I need to speak with you. My name is Douglas Cartland. I'm a detective.
A detective? Really? Well, nice talking to you.
Hold on. There's someone that wants to meet you. Just let me have an hour. No, half an hour of your time.
My daddy always told me not to talk to strangers.
This is very important. It's about your birth.
I'm not interested. Are you still following me?
Sorry. I'll wait here.
Heather discovers a strange emblem on the bathroom mirror that causes her head to hurt and seems familiar to her in some way. She then uses the window as an escape route to avoid the detective and find another way out. While the shopping center appears to be empty now, Heather soon finds out that she's trapped inside and most of the exits are closed off to her. As she makes her way around, her surroundings seem to have transformed into a run-down version of the area, with unsettling sounds in the distance. Soon enough, though, she discovers that she's not completely alone.
Stay back! Get the hell away from me! What the hell is this thing?
To make matters worse now, the halls are suddenly filled with the monsters from her nightmares, waiting for her around every corner. Heather does come across one person in particular, who seems to know what's happening and why it's happening to her.
Hey, wait, what's going on? Where is everybody? Those weird monsters?
They've come to witness the beginning. The rebirth of paradise, despoiled by mankind.
What are you talking about?
Don't you know? Your power is needed.
How?
I am Claudia. Remember me, and your true self as well. Also, that which you must become. The one who will lead us to paradise with blood-stained hands.
Did you do all this?
It was the hand of God.
She's forced to move forward and find a way out on her own, though not fully prepared to face the horrors that await her. Well, not until she finds a familiar artifact.
Is this a dream? It's gotta be. Not even a kid could believe in this. When am I going to wake up?
Armed with a handgun, a flashlight, and a radio that emits static when monsters are around, Heather descends into the otherworld. Upon finding her way through the transformed building, there is one large obstacle standing in her way. Heather faces her first boss battle, Splitworm.
It's the shopping mall just like before. Am I back?
With everything seemingly back to normal for the time being, Heather runs into Douglas once more.
Heather!
It's you.
She accuses him of being allied with Claudia and somehow responsible for the shopping center's transformation. But the detective seems just as puzzled as she is about the recent events.
She asked me to find you, that's all.
So you are one of them.
I don't know anything about this. Why don't you start by telling me what happened here?
All I know is that things are getting really screwy around here, and I got a weird feeling it's got something to do with me.
What's so special about you anyway?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be so confused, would I?
Subconsciously, Heather's memory had been triggered, confirming to her that she indeed is linked to the strange going-ons. She quickly decides to head home through the town subway.
What should I do?
Hell if I know.
The trip home quickly devolves into another hellish run, with monsters now inhabiting the entire station, and eventually, the train. Once the train stops, Heather isn't led directly to her street. Instead, she must continue to fight her way through an alternate route, which begins in an underground passage and ends up going through an abandoned construction site. This area also ends up being consumed by the powers of the nightmare world, and she'll have to overcome several creatures blocking her path while uncovering more clues belonging to her forgotten past. Surprisingly, Heather soon encounters someone who seems to know more about her past, though she's not entirely sure if he can be trusted.
Heather. That's what you're called now, isn't it?
And who are you?
The name's Vincent. Don't forget it, okay?
The eccentric Vincent gives slight implications of Claudia having been manipulated by Heather's mother, and gets very offended when Heather thinks he's Claudia's ally. She decides to leave the room after he questions her father's honesty, and realizing she won't be getting any answers from him.
There's something wrong with you too.
Heather finally manages to return to her apartment building. Unfortunately, she arrives too late.
Dad, I'm home. Listen, something really crazy's going on. I think we should... Dad? Dad?
Heather's father, Harry Mason, had been murdered.
No! No! Did you do this?
You're late.
But why? Why?
Revenge for 17 years ago, for one thing. If not for him, our dream would have come true. And then he took you away from us. It must be this way. One day you'll understand why.
No, I'll never understand!
He's the one who killed your father. I merely gave the order. So, what will you do? I'll be waiting where all begins. In the town of Silent Hill.
Heather then channels her anguish and her hatred to defeat the creature known as the Missionary. On her way back down, she finds the detective at the scene and gets even more upset, realizing he was largely to blame for Claudia's coming. But willing to right his wrong, Douglas then asks to help Heather. And Heather knew what she had to do.
What do you do now?
I'm going to Silent Hill.
On the drive there, Heather reads a journal left behind by her father. In it, she learns his fateful trip to Silent Hill, where his adopted daughter Cheryl had disappeared into. Cheryl would turn out to be the split half of Alessa, a girl with powerful psychic abilities who, due to the scheming of her mother Dahlia, was to birth God. After Harry defeated the cult's god, a dying Alessa handed a baby to him, and despite Harry shortly after having thoughts of killing the infant, he decided to keep her and to raise her.
I never had a chance to tell you how happy you made me.
This baby was Heather Mason, and the cult was forcing Heather to return to Silent Hill in attempts to birth God once more. After Douglas receives a tip from Vincent, they begin to search for a man named Leonard. Douglas heads over to Leonard's residence, while Heather heads to the Brookhaven Hospital, making her way through the town's dangerous, fog-covered streets. The hospital, however, would prove to be even more dangerous. The rooms and halls are filled with demonic nurses, triggering more memories of her final days as Alessa, back when she was being taken care of by her personal nurse, a girl named Lisa Garland. The hospital gets consumed by the nightmare world once more, and Alessa has to fight her way out of it. She does, however, get a lead on Leonard's location by making contact with him.
Heather, will you help me?
Help you?
I'm locked up in here, and I must stop Claudia.
Where are you now?
I'm not sure myself, but the door is at the end of the hall on the second floor. I think I can be of help to you. I have a seal. Please.
Leonard, where are you?
Thank you. Now I can finally leave here. Now Claudia's ridiculous dream is over. I guess it's time to dispose of her. The salvation of all mankind. Ha! Why must we reward even the unbelievers?
What are you talking about?
Only we, who hearken to the voice of God, will be given the keys to paradise.
I don't want any part of that kind of paradise.
You're an unbeliever. You deceived me.
I thought you were a normal person.
So you tried to trick me so you can run off with my seal, eh? Heretic! You plan to destroy God!
What is this seal thing anyway?
Don't play innocent. You can't fool me anymore. The seal is mine!
Leonard? Is that you?
Death to all who turn their backs on God!
The encounter with Claudia's estranged father doesn't go exactly as planned. With his insanity controlling his decayed monstrous form, Leonard attempts to kill Heather.
What's this?
Now, with the seal of Metrodon in her hands, Heather returns to the motel only to find Vincent there instead of Douglas.
Where's Douglas?
He went out. But he left a message for you.
He tells her that Douglas has left to Claudia's current location, the nearby church. Vincent indicates that she will have to cross the local amusement park to get there, and although Heather is cautious about trusting the stranger still, she has no other choice but to believe him at this point.
Douglas really said that?
What's wrong? You don't trust me?
Fortunately, Vincent was telling the truth, and it's there that Heather's nightmares would become reality.
I hired you to find the girl, and you performed serviceably. What is it now?
You lied to me about Heather, lady. I don't like being used.
Lie? What lie?
That Heather was kidnapped from
But it's true. She was originally one of us. That man, Harry Mason, stole her away and kept her hidden from us.
you. Yeah, but she says she was happy.
She was brainwashed by him, deceived, because her true self had not yet awoken. She carries God within her. But when Alessa, Mother of God, truly awakens,
Yeah? What's gonna happen?
she will usher in the eternal paradise.
What kind of place is that?
A place with no pain, no hunger, no sickness, no old age. There will be no greed or war, and all will live by God's grace alone.
No this, no that, no nothing. A paradise? For castrated sheep, maybe. Sounds pretty boring.
I pity you. You still don't understand. You're going to kill me? Is it really so easy for you?
I've done it before.
Then I truly do pity you.
Heather was now forced to confront her former incarnation, the memory of Alessa, a manifestation of her previous self with one sole intention: to kill her reincarnation and prevent the Order from rebirthing God. After defeating her, Heather realizes how different they were despite sharing the same soul. While Alessa had sought to end her life to stop the cult's plans, Heather is convinced that she has to confront them in order to put an end to it once and for all.
Douglas!
She manages to reach Douglas, who's been wounded by Claudia and doesn't have enough strength to accompany her any further. Despite him knowing it would be rational to take Heather's life and to put a stop to this, he encourages her to move forward, leading her to the Order's new church.
Don't die on me, okay?
How did you get here? It was Vincent, wasn't it?
Checkmate.
Not yet. The time is not yet at hand.
While Claudia explains the Order's vision of a perfect world brought forth after the cleansing by God's fire, it's clear that Heather cannot be persuaded, despite having the God growing inside of her. She refuses Claudia once more.
Listen, suffering is a fact of life. Either you learn how to deal with that or you go under. Besides, I'll never forgive you for hurting my father.
It's growing within you. You despise me, don't you?
You're damned right I do.
That's good.
Again, Heather must battle her way through the monsters and obstacles within the church as it converts into the nightmare world. The further into the building she gets, the more she uncovers about the cult, as well as learning more about her past as Alessa. The hardships she suffered from being bullied at her school, her years of suffering as a burn victim in the hospital basement, and finally her scarce peaceful times captured within the walls of Alessa's room. With the birth of God drawing near, it was finally time for Heather to meet her destiny.
Well, the guest of honor has arrived. The time has come. You can kill her now.
You'll go to hell!
What did you do?
Nothing important.
You're not going to run? I guess this is the end.
No, the beginning. As Vincent said, the time has come. Alessa, I'm saddened that you didn't agree to this on your own.
Just when Claudia seems to have everything under her control, Vincent manages to stay alive long enough to remind Heather about the seal she had obtained earlier. This unfortunately does nothing to help her, and Claudia forcefully puts an end to Vincent's meddling. The pains begin to overcome Heather as the birth of God begins. She realizes she has one final hope, the necklace her father gave her. The unbreakable faith and love for her father had gotten her this far, and it would help her one last time.
What are you doing?
Dad.
She is nearly here.
The god, still in fetal form, is ejected from Heather through her mouth, and as it lies on the floor dying, Heather is ready to crush its remaining life out.
Looks like God didn't make it. Stop!
But Claudia will stop at nothing to see the ritual completed.
God is...
Claudia!
Alessa, you cannot kill God. I will burn God. If you can't do it, Alessa, I will. Ah!
Despite knowing the danger that would most likely await her, Heather descends. With Claudia gone now, Heather must face a prematurely born god with the image of Alessa.
Is that the end? I guess it's time to roll the credits.
Dad! Dad!
Like its predecessors, Silent Hill has multiple endings aside from its canonical good ending. The bad ending shows us a possessed Heather returning to the amusement park to kill the detective. And in what is possibly the most bizarre ending yet, the now traditional UFO ending shows Harry alive and well, along with a James Sunderland cameo, as they plot to put an end to the sinister town once and for all. Multiple playthroughs will also unlock a wealth of new weapons for Heather, as well as a collection of costume changes, a first in the series. While most of the costumes are colorful tops, one change in particular allows Heather to transform into a magical girl.
Sexy.
An optional costume change is also available for Douglas, though it's not exactly a flattering one. Silent Hill 3 received generally good reviews overall. On a graphical standpoint, it excelled, and continues to be considered one of the best-looking games of the series. The dreadful atmosphere and unsettling sound design make it a high point of the early Silent Hill games. Akira Yamaoka's music was considered up to par with the inclusion of songs that enhanced the mood of the cutscenes. Criticism has mainly stemmed from the noticeably bad writing, with some poorly written and poorly delivered dialogue not helping disguise the fact that it was basically just a plotless revenge story. This story also borrowed heavily from the themes of the first game, making it seem more like a retelling than a true sequel. The combat system, though somewhat improved, was essentially the same as the previous game, showing very little innovation. And in a lot of cases, tedious battles with monsters could be avoided altogether, making the game considerably shorter in length. While the camera gave more of a cinematic feel, it proved to be more problematic for the gameplay at times. Regardless, Silent Hill 3 rounded out the original trilogy of Silent Hill games successfully, and assuring that Team Silent still had plenty of tricks under their sleeve. But with the rapidly changing landscape in video gaming, Konami would have to do better than a retread of their old streets to maintain their key horror franchise relevant for the rest of the current console generation.
Put here on this earth, put here to feel joy. We were put here on this earth, put here to feel joy.
On the next episode, we'll look into the notorious Room 302, which is also known as Team Silent's swan song.